I saw this was this criminal, this fake, what is it called? Internet investigator, right?
Yeah, I
She
watched her
said,
video. Yeah.
oh, yeah, total bull, total scam. That's like a hate crime. So when some of your circus clowns say, "Oh, he's got a genetic," I'm a doctor. I heard this ridiculous lady say
Hmm.
stuff without any brain
But is there any reason
because he was brain injured.
why they did this experiment on Jimmy in particular and not somebody else?
So I'm recording everything just in case this is a setup.
Sure.
Nothing
Okay.
personal.
Mhm.
So immortality is here. I can tell you that, and I think many people know about it. DARPA know about it.
So last month, I made a video about a strange YouTube channel called Jimmy's Wish. On the channel, a father claims that his son, Jimmy, was suffocated with a plastic bag by doctors in a hospital because of him threatening to expose medical misconduct. You should watch my video if you haven't already. I recently got in touch with James Ryan, and he agreed to do an interview talking about his son and responding to the videos that people have made about this. I want to give a heads up that the interview was 2.5 hours long, and some parts I felt were redundant. So I shortened the interview quite a bit, and I put timestamps in the description that will lead you to which specific topics we covered. However, I don't want James Ryan to think that I have maliciously shortened the length of the video, so I will be leaving a link to the full unedited interview in the description. Here we go. Thanks for joining me today. I really appreciate it. I know that what you're going through right now is definitely not easy at all, so I appreciate you taking the time. I'm sure that all of us appreciate you taking the time. So first of all, how's Jimmy doing right now?
Well, he's in stable condition. Actually, he's off life support, and he's now breathing on his own from about November last year. So, but now unfortunately, he's got a brain tumor.
Okay.
So it's very stressful. But we're accelerating a program to try to save his life, and we've been working very hard since about November 2015 when we had a breakthrough, and so we're working very hard on it. But he's stable, and we have hope that we can step by step regenerate his brain and slowly regenerate his bones and step by step. Thank you.
Okay, that sounds good. So, as you know, I mean, a lot of people have made videos about the situation. You've gained quite a lot of attention on Reddit too, and you've seen my opinion on it from my video. And some people are more skeptical of it. Some people just aren't quite sure what to think. So you've already seen our opinions on it. So this is just for you to tell the whole story from your side, so we can hear everything and your response to all this kind of stuff. So I want to start from the very beginning, like when you first made the Jimmy's Wish YouTube channel, which was in 2015. And your first video, you mentioned that when Jimmy was 11 years old, which was in 2007, right?
Yeah.
You said that he was suffocated with a plastic bag by some doctors in the hospital.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So I wanted
That's
to
all
know.
caught. That's all caught. I mean, we have witnesses. We have a doctor that was our CEO who actually they were trying to frame me, Kojima. We were threatened because we were whistleblowers at the time. So I'll step back a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, my son suffered an atrocity as an infant, as a baby, 2 months old. The doctors lied to us at June Tender University, and to do a shunt surgery because they needed the experience. They withheld the medical examination and showed Jimmy was a healthy baby, and it was quite a. So this, what happened as an infant, got us involved in rejection. First, got us involved in looking for the best scientists. So if you look at sorry, I've never done a video thing, so it's
That's
my
okay.
first time. So, and so if you look at our history, if you look at James Ryan, if you look at stem cell research and look up all kinds of different articles, you can say we were well in the lead in a lot of different areas of clinical translation of stem cells. Because as an infant, we were doing very aggressive rehabilitation, working very hard on recovering him. So he was recovering. So people who are claiming he's genetically sick are, this is just a cruel, this is sick people. That's all I can say. Because you can't lie to police. We're fighting with the FBI. Currently, the DOJ, the FBI, the State Department are involved in a criminal cover-up. They're facilitating the felony murder of my son. So I'm not going to lie. They have all the data. They have me recorded. I was under surveillance in 2016. And there's a long story there. So I was under unlawful surveillance by the Obama administration, Biden. You know? So my view, my experience with corruption, public corruption, is extreme. Because I've survived 2 murder attempts, and this is because we were whistleblowers. And now I'll go back to when what happened to Jimmy's suffocation.
Okay.
Um, Now, I honestly, because I tried to read some of people what people think on Reddit. Some people that I don't know what's wrong with these people. Some of them are like maybe have mental issues, or maybe it's my fault in the sense that I'll give you the question. Do you remember you made your first video?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
Yeah. Were you good at it?
No, I wasn't.
This is
No,
an honest question.
I
Yeah.
was not.
Were you good?
Nope.
Yeah. Yeah. So obviously I wasn't, because those were in desperation. I just survived a murder attempt. We had found my son was under other experiments for JCR Pharmaceuticals, a company that was involved in email. All of the evidence was caught. So it's not like I'm making allegations. These are facts. Okay, so just to relax, because I get always upset when I talk about my son.
Yeah.
All right. So after he was an infant, we funded research. We partnered with Yuri Volensky. You can see we were the first group to reprogram stem cells from somatic cells in the world. You can go back into the 90s. You can see that we were funding research on cloning cells and cloning animals. Because my wife has a long history. Her father had a stroke, comes from a good family, the Komatsu family. And she was involved even before I met her in funding research on trying to save her father's brain, because her father had suffered a stroke. So by the time I married her, she was already an expert in understanding brain.
Okay.
Anyway, so as we were working, getting very advanced to prepare to launch an effort to finally regenerate his brain from the injury, as a brain injury from as an infant, we were taking over the largest stem cell company in Japan. Okay. Now remember, I cannot even make a little misunderstanding. What I'm telling you is facts backed by evidence, backed by irrefutable evidence. That's so. When we took it over, our CEO was Dr. Gojo Satoshi, and it was the largest stem cell company in Japan at the time. And we were doing it for a very specific reason, to take over the largest stem cell company in the United States, called Advanced Cell Technology. And okay, so we took it over, and then right as we took it over, one of the whistleblowers came to Gojo and said, "Listen, did you know that all of their research is fake? The HMADs, they're doing all these press releases." About $7 million they had raised, but there was no evidence of research being done in the lab. So they were just lying to the public. And these were the 3 top stem cell scientists in Japan. Let's say, like, if you found that Fauci and all the people around the NIH and all, they were engaged in total fraud, scientific fraud, and fraudulent schemes to enrich themselves. Okay, so we were put in a situation where, what do? We went to the top lawyer, and he says, "Well, you're going to have to report this to the police, because even if you hide that and you take over a public company in the United States, Advanced Cell Technology, we could be held accountable for fraud, because we're involved in concealing the crime." So we had no obligation. We had no other choice. Because, when people talk about whistleblowers, they try to give them a bad image, but you're legally obligated to crime. You're not allowed. So when you see Julian Assange in prison rotting, he was obligated to report crimes. I mean, and he's in prison for his legal obligation. Of course, they're not going to put him in prison for hiding their crimes. So that's the big problem that we're facing right now with corruption in the United States too. All right. So okay, so we had an emergency board meeting, which is recorded and even on YouTube, from which one of our CEOs was a guy named Ozu, who was involved later with a fraudulent kangaroo court with a lawyer called Kasahara, right? Who was involved in the criminal conspiracy with the. I'll step back. So All right, so we had to report on Christmas Eve. We had to hold an emergency meeting. This is December 24th, 2007. And right after the meeting, this bureaucrat, Nakajima Yoshiko, starts calling, harassing us that you better be careful. We have all the emails, although also, by the way, witnesses too, even with our CEO, threatening him, coercing him. You know how there's these allegations that the Bidens coerced Ukraine to give 10 million. Well,
Hmm.
similar situation where this high level bureaucrat, top coordinator from Kobe government, is threatening us that we better not go to the police. And one of the things that she said on the 26th, here's where this very strong evidence suggesting that it was, and we have multiple other evidence that we is given to the FBI and to the DOJ and to the State Department. But on the 26th, we found later that the doctor that actually suffocated my son and tried to blame it on me, Kojima, was secretly planning. He's not my son's doctor, not my son's doctor, Reiji Kojima. You could look. I sent you links that you could see. He also went up like a strange experiments on tick-borne viruses. So the government's funding him for other experiments on even their own army. But he was trying to get another doctor from Hero Hospital to falsely accuse us for child neglect or abuse. And the guy would not go along with it, but we recorded that evidence too. So, but anyways, we were being threatened, coerced in email, which are serious crimes. If a politician or a bureaucrat is threatening you, aiming threats at your son to conceal wrongdoing, evidence of wrongdoing, that's a crime. Okay. That's just to show you. Even before they suffocated my son, we were victims of what you called international terrorism. They're threatening our son. They're going to, he's going to have problems. The police are not going to help us. But my wife comes from a good family. Even one of her brothers was a police boss. He's retired now, but. All right. So, of course, my wife thinks this bureaucrat, because she comes from a family where they pay politicians for they come, they'll do anything for you for money. I mean, they're literally like, my wife used to call them like geishas, because and lower level bureaucrats, my wife was thinking, this is ridiculous. This person's going to be put in prison. We did not understand the power of big institutions that are funded into the billions, like Fauci or other people who are lying to the American public. So anyways, all right. So my son was staying at the hospital for a seasonal cold. He's disabled from the infant experiments by June Tender University, but he was still at home mostly. And we always were very careful with him. So whenever he had a little cold or anything and lung infection, any child, we were overprotective with him. So we kept him in the hospital for like a few days till he fully recovered.
And he was 11 years old
He
here,
had fully
right?
recovered. Huh?
He was 11 years old here, right?
At this time, he was 11 years old.
Okay.
And, many scientists know him because he was going with us everywhere. Many scientists, oh, hey, because we were funding research. So, he was crawling, even though he was 11 years old, he couldn't walk yet, but we were, of course, going to get him to walk. He was talking, but not perfectly. He was saying words, but not perfectly. But of course, we have confidence easily at that time. Now we could step by step regenerate him and recover him. The people who think you can't are stuck listening to doctors like they're priests. That's definitely, they don't understand science or cutting edge science. So, anyway, so on the 28th of December, it was a Friday, and I had already packed his stuff. He was expected to be checked out because we took him everywhere. Okay, every meeting, he was always with us, Jimmy. And we have, this is so many witnesses on this one. So scientists, and the doctor. I was trying to find Doctor. Anyways, this one doctor came to me and says, I'm not going to release him. And at the end of the year, God, at the end of the year, all the kids were being released because there was holidays, Christmas holidays and New Year's, because there was a shortage of staff, of doctors, nurses. So there was barely any other kids on the floor because they were released. The ones that had no symptoms or serious condition, they all go home to their parents for the holidays. And Dr. Reiji Kojima wouldn't release Jimmy, from which, he was a younger doctor, didn't know who he was. I seen him on the floor, like, hello, how are you doing? Could walk by, but I never spoke with him. I didn't know he was planning to falsely accuse us for no reason with another hospital. He was involved in a conspiracy, the evidence shows, to frame us. Okay.
Okay.
Anyway, so they wouldn't release him. I had all his clothes in the car. We were expected to bring him home. He was, okay, I'm gonna leave him here. He's fine. We have end of year meetings. Okay, end of year meetings with scientists. Suspiciously enough, on the same time they were suffocating my son, a high level CEO had pushed our CEO must have a meeting. Okay, this is a high level. This is an email. I'm not going to say his name because he just died.
Okay.
But a very high level CEO was trying to push Gojo to have a meeting with him. My wife was in meetings with a top professor from Tokyo University who we made a company with for using embryonic stem cells to make platelets. The company was called ESET. Okay. And when she was with Nakauchi, Professor Nakauchi, he's now at Stanford, so he's a high-level scientist now. We don't have a relationship with him because after my son was tortured, there's a lot of people get scared for their career. They can't associate with us. So it's a double cruelty, You're not only a crime victim, but people who are close with you separate themselves because they have a career. If someone was, it's a horrible situation, but I'll go further. So a child protection agency, a Mr. Tsunoshima, called my wife at night, and he was like, where are you? Where are you? And this puzzled my wife because what is a Friday night? That was a puzzling situation, number one, because that's part of the evidence. Okay. Then we finish up. I drive back I slept with Jimmy in the hospital every day in the bed next to his bed. I do that. And I found him when I came around 5 a.m, and I found him like shaking with his eyes bleeding, red blood, is shaking, and there was no one around him. The whole floor, there was not even no one at the nurse station. So I panicked. He had a red strangle mark around us, a string mark, and his eyes were like locked open, brain dead. And I was freaking out, calling my wife, and finally got a hold of a nurse, and they were saying, what happened? And they were all acting like, people think of nurses and doctors as people you're going to trust. But in that situation, they work together as a unit to lie. So, and as the morning came, then Kojima, and then when the first time I saw Reiji, Kojima goes, what did you do? And I'm like, I couldn't put it together. I was like, I was worried about Jimmy. And then finally, after like an hour and a half, our CEO comes, and they did not expect us to bring a high-level cardiac surgeon in to examine him immediately. And Gojo, and at that time, the narrative was, what did you do to your son? And I didn't know Reiji Kojima was trying to frame me with the Child Protection Agency. And I didn't know it was, anyway, so.
And they were framing you because of exposing, like whistleblowing, I guess?
The three, okay, that's the evidence, okay? Now, we were never allowed to go to court. We're never allowed to have evidence in Japan. We're never allowed to, I'm not allowed at the embassy. Did you know that? That's a crime. That's a crime. The press club, the New York Times, the Guardian's a criminal, this guy named George Monbiot, but they were involved in the cover-up. Okay, so people who trust the New York Times, people who trust the State Department, people who trust the FBI, they're being misled. Okay, they're being misled because they will cover up crimes for what turned out to be high-paying schemes, bribery schemes. That's the evidence shows is the ambassador John Roos, Eric Holder's law firm, they're all enriching themselves. And this, I think, was the policy of how what they were calling this. I think the Eric Holder policy was too big to jail, right? Where this is in the United States, where they would then not investigate the banks who were involved in misleading borrowers and causing all these financial crimes, credit default swaps and all this crimes that they were doing. And they rescued the banks, and then they kicked, I think, over 5 million families into the streets. 5 million families were kicked in the streets, and he invented this thing called too big to jail, right? So that was happening in Japan. Okay. Serious crimes on American children and also economic crimes with two banks involved, Mitsubishi UFJ and Mizuho. So that's at a later date.
Sure.
All right. So Gojo says, "What? He's going to go blind because his eyes are locked open. Why didn't you cover his eyes?" And then finally, because the narrative at that time was, "What did you do to your son?" Me, And finally, he says, "Whatever happened to Jimmy," because his eyes were so thick and bloody, a very hard layer coating his eyes, locked open. They said, "Whatever happened to Jimmy happened a long time ago, 12 hours ago." So you could see that they were not expecting Gojo there. Now, Gojo and I haven't talked, and he's now a high-level professor, and I'm sure he's high-funded, and, let him go to his career. I recorded everything, my wife, everything. So even if they try to say, "We're going to give you the highest professorship and all the funding in the world," it doesn't matter. Under oath and with lying technology to capture him lying, he cannot hide the truth. So he was there. He found he's a witness to the red strangle mark. And he was also tormented too, first, right after, threatened. Mm-hmm. His whole career was threatened by Kobe government. Like his actions, anything he does, his whole future is at risk. Okay, so I don't blame him. He's got children. He's got a wife. He's a lovely guy. So I'm not angry with Gojo. So I respect him, and I respect that he's taking care of his family. But all right. So if it wasn't for Gojo, I would be in prison, because he's the one who then got them to shake and freak out. Wakamatsu Sensei, the doctor. And it was my wife, because her father was a military boss,
Yeah.
Young, very young. And he was a head of a kamikaze unit, and he was involved in psychological operations. So she was trained as a very little girl that's why I've never won an argument with my wife, because she's an expert at understanding. She can pick up all little, and she's very, very good IQ, good Japanese wife. So if it wasn't for her, I'd be in prison, falsely accused. So, so she saw right away. And so she was demanding an answer to the red strangle mark around Jimmy's neck. And the way she did it, with both of them in the room and everybody's in the room, and where they finally admit it was caused by a red strangle mark. Okay. So that caused by a plastic bag they had placed over his head, and they sealed off the oxygen, but they'd sealed it very tight. So this was hours and hours ago. So obviously they were strangling and suffocating my 11-year-old son. So remember, you have to remember, they were first all lying to frame me.
Yeah.
They were all going to accuse me for the crime. The Child Protection Agency was at the hospital at night, after they did this, did not teach my wife, as they called her, at night. There's never a government worker working on Friday night. Okay, so he was involved. We were told this later by Sasai, another professor, who magically died. Okay. So we finally get to the Wakamatsu to admit, because I don't think he did it. He said it was caused by a plastic bag string. And my wife, Mickey, so she knows at this time, she's smart. Of course, I don't have that kind of planning. So I don't have that, interrogation DNA. Obviously, wives are great at interrogating husbands. So she's incredibly smart. So she leaves. She leaves. She leaves, and then she calls back and starts recording everything. Right. So she has it all caught. We have witnesses We have recordings of them lying over and over. Okay, intent. You can show all of this. This is irrefutable case. Okay, irrefutable.
Okay.
So that they're caught, they had suffocated my son. Koijima admits for about 5 to 10 minutes they put a plastic. They're all lying, though. We catch them all making different stories. So whoever says, oh, they don't say nothing. Okay, you have people lying over and over, changing the story. But so number one, a healthy boy, even though he's disabled, you're not allowed to. There is no therapy for this. Is for your audience. There is no therapy where you put a plastic bag over an 11-year-old boy's head, strangle him, suffocate him till he's brain dead. Okay, we found out later horrible things were happening as they were torturing my son. So this was Sasai had confessed to us that it was ordered by the bureaucrat who we were whistleblowing on. Okay, so and they were sticking needles in his eyes, and he had bloody eyes and he had bloody nose. So all of the things that are substantiated by what we saw. So and the bureaucrat is also caught in email and everything. The funding of the doctors who were starving Jimmy were also involved, funded, and directly connected with the bureaucrat, directly connected, who stole our patents, which are national security crimes. So let me step back. So, all right, so we captured all the evidence. It took about 2 weeks, okay, to gather all the recordings of them lying, because it's very hard to capture them contradicting themselves and changing their stories. So that's number one. Okay, so for your team of I don't want to insult them, because I'll take the excuse that I don't know how to make videos. And when I made those videos, we had confirmed he was under other experiments. Okay, I had survived, and as my wife found out what was happening, and there were another 100 children, disabled children, that died from these experiments. My son was being pushed to be transferred to a hospital with no ICU. And we know he was going to die like the other 100 children that they tested drugs on, unapproved drugs. Okay. This was being done in collaboration with Nihon University. Okay. And some of the sponsors directly linked with the former prime minister. It was just really, really bad corruption. So, okay. So we captured the evidence. We gave it all to the Tokurozawa Saitama police. Okay. All right. Now, they're going to investigate, and we're expecting they're going to indict, but we know the prosecutors, they're going to have to do all this. You can see cases, right? We have no idea that the Tokurozawa police are involved in hiding and concealing the crimes. Just like Christopher Wray, this FBI director now, he's hiding the crimes on our son. I think of him as a criminal, by the way. And he's also hiding the crimes of the bribery schemes, and probably so many crimes of the law firms that I can tell you the scheme these guys are doing, these prosecutors, almost identical to the top prosecutors. They're top lawyers. They work for big law firms. Okay. They're saying they're serving the public. That's a scam. That's a lie. That's a lie. Mm-hmm. They're misleading you. I'm not talking about the lower level people that probably are just really skilled at interrogations and other skills. There's no way I'm saying that those people are corrupt, but I'm saying the ones that are revolving in and out of the top law firms or the top weapons industry, or how they're going in and out, enriching themselves, they're the ones who are responsible for the murder of my son when he dies. That's a fact.
Okay.
Of course, you can't get them to investigate themselves, okay?
Yeah.
So after that, we're immediately right away online. There's already bloggers. Oh, the Ryan family, they're involved in fraud and this. So, and of course, the police won't investigate that. You can't find these people. They're in Japan. Later, we found out it was actually the government, done with Kyoto University and a guy now at Keio University. And one of the top ethics person was involved in orchestrating this from the government, from Kobe government. So the online slander to dehumanize us and to discredit you, to make us into to falsely accuse us with fake names. And this was this criminal, this fake, what is it called? Internet investigator, right? She
I watched
said,
her video.
Total bullshit, total scam. That's like a hate crime. If you misgender people, they can be considered a hate crime, right? But this is a fraud person who I'm taking steps to hold accountable. Hopefully I can put her in prison.
I don't think that she was
Because
trying to intentionally like say anything incorrect. I mean, I thought she was pretty careful with it. I've seen some of her other videos
no,
too, and
no, no, total bullshit, total bullshit. She was reading other people, like these people, online bloggers who are fake. Okay. And I'll show you they're directly linked to Rakuten, who was involved in stealing our trade secrets. So let me
well,
go back.
do you
Let me
think
take a
do you
drink.
think she
Sorry.
was doing it on
Give me a
purpose
second.
though, or do you think she was just misinformed?
I don't know. At the same time, I'm working on a case in England to save a boy. My company, Omgenium, is involved in a project to rescue a UK boy who was on life support. And then 2 weeks after, this video comes up, and I'm like, people, all these, you're a fraud, you're this, people like, your son's a fake. It's like unbelievable. And, it's my son, right?
Yeah.
So, and when they say these things, sometimes I ignore them, but sometimes, I swear to God, I know parents with sick children, right? And I know these people, if these people were to say such a thing outside of a hospital, I, I wouldn't blame a parent for tearing them apart. So
For
that
sure.
that's what I want to do to some of these people.
Yeah.
Some of those creeps. Okay.
Yeah.
I would
Well,
love, I would love for them to
I would
come.
imagine. Well, one thing that I kind of
Yeah.
wanted to talk about too was okay. So, um,
That was the beginning. That was the beginning. Because it
okay.
begins from here, it begins the crimes. Begin
Well,
from here.
I want to like go way far back to when Jimmy was only 2 months old because that was on jimmyswish.com, which right now is protected behind like a password, which I was confused by. 'Cause that
I
was
don't do the web. That's related to my wife. I don't do anything with
okay
the web.
because she said
I'm
that
under
when
threat we're under threat from the police, prosecutors, that if we don't stop complaining, we could be arrested. They'll make up any reason to indict us. They'll freeze our bank accounts. The embassy condones this. The embassy hides this. These are national security crimes.
okay
So some of the worst crimes, the FBI, the DOJ, the State Department are directly involved in. They're directly involved in a cover up. They're
yeah
murdering my son. Now, I'm saying this, that they're watching this. And so that my impression is, okay, please, you know what you're doing. It's a crime. It's going to come back. I filed complaints, criminal complaints.
mhm.
They've banned me from the embassy, which is another crime. It's another. Okay, so sorry. I just want to communicate that.
Yeah, I know, I
Okay.
get that. So, but she was saying that when he was 2 months old, like you said, that he was two doctors named Kiyoshi Sato and Shinichi Najima conducted experiments on him. One of them included drilling a hole in his head to research hydrocephalus.
Yeah, that was not true. He didn't have hydrocephalus. That was what they were saying to
Yeah.
frighten us. His head was going to grow. Um, it was all a scam because after when we were court, they were hiding the medical records until court, and then we got the medical records, and then
Okay.
after the judge and they all cover it up. The judges are involved in corruption in Japan. So, uh,
But this
but
incident, this incident has no relation to the plastic bag incident. Like these are just two completely separate.
no, no, no. That's what got us into stem cell research
Okay, got it. But is there any reason
because he was brain injured.
why they did this experiment on Jimmy in particular and not somebody else?
Maybe because he's a foreigner, but maybe because there are some Japanese people who hate. Like if you're half Japanese, what is your racial makeup?
You're asking me?
What is your racial? Yeah.
I'm half black, half white.
All right. So
Yeah.
there are people in the United States that don't like you for that. I swear to God. Maybe
Sure.
a
Yeah.
small percent, maybe 5% of the population.
Yeah.
So in Japan, I don't know why they did this to Jimmy, but the National Institute, this one doctor who started this, who gave the fake diagnosis, who put a needle in his brain, was the one Sugai Sensei. We found evidence that he's one of those Americans in the medical record. So he had racial bias, but I don't know. Maybe this is what they do to people who are certain vulnerable people who are. I can't tell you. I can't tell you why people's motive at that point. I can
Sure.
tell you the motive of the suffocation. I can tell you that these doctors gained valuable experience in doing a sun surgery based on fake fabricated medical records, that's what they got. They got valuable experience, and how they tried to actually. It appeared they tried to murder my son because they gave him very strong drugs and left the hospital. They didn't inform us. They didn't intubate him. All of these are written in the protocols. You're supposed to intubate before you give the drug. So we had to hunt down a doctor as my son stopped breathing as an infant. Okay. So we don't know the motive at that time. I cannot say, but I can evil, some doctors are sick. They need experience. They want to publish a paper. I mean, there's evidence right now of all the experiments done that Fauci did with minority orphans. They killed them, testing various drugs for the AIDS. Nobody's investigating that. What's his motive? What's his motive? Imagine if it was another ethnic, favorable ethnic group.
That's why I'm just so confused about what happened to Jimmy, because I mean, with like the infant orphans, I guess like that would make sense to do that because no one's gonna like notice them missing or anything. But Jimmy like was your son, like you would definitely notice something wrong with him.
Well, no. He had abnormal eye movement one night, and so my wife took care of her dad, and her grandfather had a stroke, and so she was, even before I met her, she was involved in caring for her father, and so. Very A-type, high tension, my wife. If she didn't have that skill, I wouldn't, be right now on the cutting edge of trying to rescue him with technology.
Yeah.
I credit her drive. So she's going to go directly to the highest level doctors. First went one or two of her father's friends. And she's going to try every medical examination if her son's had one time abnormal eye movement. My wife is overprotective of her children, totally overprotective. If people think they're going to get away with what they did to our family, that's a pipe dream. I survived 2 murder attempts. There's no chance if they have another. I don't think they're going to do another because everybody knows what happened to us. And we're too prepared. So, no, why my wife was overprotective to her infant son. She's a mother.
Okay.
If you have, did you have a child yet?
No.
Okay. Well, imagine you have a child, a little boy, and he looks, something's a little abnormal, and you say, I better check it out. Right.
Yeah.
So, and God help you if you go to the wrong doctor, who's getting funded for certain drug testing, off books. Yeah.
I see.
That's happening. That's happening, by the way. It's happening probably everywhere. Yeah.
Well, so I also wanted to talk more in depth about like the evidence that you have too, because I think that's going to help a lot. Sure. In one of your videos, you talked about one of the conversations with one of the doctors that actually admitted to the plastic bag thing. It was a conversation that your wife had with him on your channel. It was like a 20-minute conversation, and I tried to translate a lot of it, but it didn't like translate so well. But someone on Reddit who claimed to be a native Japanese speaker, they gave their input on the conversation. This is in the video. They said, these are just the highlighted parts. They just said, the recordings of the doctors and the nurses, from what I could hear, are not nearly as malicious as what the parents are making them out to be. They mentioned that the reason why they utilized a plastic bag, not tied around his neck, but held up against his mouth, was because he was out of breath and panicking. It's outdated to do this, since holding a bag to help with breathing has no real benefits. This unfortunately seems like a case where the parents are deluded and think they are being persecuted, while at most the hospital is incompetent and outdated in their methods. I have a lot of doubts that it was intentional and part of a conspiracy. So what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, that's a stupid person. I mean, you're having someone lie on the tape. Okay, so number one, we have it. We have witnesses that the initial admission by Wakamatsu, who's he's talking about, the red string mark around my son. Now it's me, my wife, Dr. Gojo Satoshi. Okay, we're in the room. Why does he have a red strangle mark around his neck? Yeah. And his eyes were locked open, brain dead and bleeding. So it was impossible I did it. Okay, that's number one. Okay, so that's where you have to show. That's where it begins. The narrative is I did it. Okay, so I'm being blamed for this. There's a setup going on with they tortured my son, obviously, and his eyes are bleeding. They're locked open. They didn't even cover it up. They withheld medical treatment. So let's go over. Okay, I want to go with you, and I want to give you the legal precedent.
Okay.
We'll go over Sergei Magnitsky, who's given special treatment by the State Department off a hoax, no evidence. We'll go off Jamal Khashoggi, who was suffocated with a plastic bag. And we're going to even mention George Floyd, but we'll go with Otto Warmbier. Okay, so number one, we have irrefutable evidence. My son was suffocated and strangled with a plastic bag. Now, the tape is a doctor changing his story over and over, trying to cover up, making news stories. So he said, if you look at all three recordings, they change over and over and over. That's what you called evidence of guilt. Okay. Lying, caught again lying, caught again lying. Now, if you were to go right now to someone who committed a crime, and if you record them, you can catch them lying over and over and over. And this is how you catch them. This is the evidence you put to show intent. So, okay, so he's capturing a guy lying and thinking that's the whole story. Okay, so number one, again, let's go over this. I'm being threatened by a bureaucrat to cover up crimes, my wife. Mm-hmm. She's aiming threats in even email.
Yeah.
That's a crime.
Well, that makes me...
So, no.
Okay, sorry, I'll go ahead.
Go ahead.
I don't want to cut you off if you weren't done, but like I did want to get to the emails too, because that was another like important part of this too. So okay, in one of your videos, you show like little text images, like of what the email said, and in some of them you mentioned that on December 25th, 2007, you received an email from a board director that said, "Be careful of your actions, be concerned about your future." And then on the December 26th, your wife got a phone call.
That's to Gojo, yeah, and also to my wife, yeah.
Yeah,
that's all caught. Those are all real emails.
Yeah, a phone call that said, "Police will never investigate. This will only become a problem for your son." And then on the 28th, Jimmy was suffocated. And then on February 12th, you got an email that said, "Depending on your future actions, your problems will worsen."
That's the video I made. Yeah, that's the video I made. Yeah, I was in panic mode because Jimmy. Okay, let me give you the proper context when I made that video. Okay. And you should know that Caroline Kennedy just rewarded her son with a high-paying position from Rakuten at that month, October. So as they're in covering up crimes on my son, you know, so on December 24th, 2014, this was after we had confirmed, my wife was publishing on Jimmy Stemis that they're killing my son. He's not, okay. Another doctor told us too, they're going to kill your son. Dr. Matsuo, who did a medical examination on my son. So, and Sasai had confessed that the reason why his eyes were bleeding and he was strangled and he was being tortured is because they were harvesting tissue and blood as they were torturing your son. And they were doing this under the direction from the bureaucrat who was threatening my son to stop us from whistleblowing. This bureaucrat stole our patents. That's a national security crime. So it gets worse. It's not just that. It's not just threatening us. It's orchestrating a criminal conspiracy to sabotage two biotech companies and blame us, you know? So, and it's connected with also, you know, even, you know, I'll go over it later, but so it's not just that kind of confirms how this bureaucrat threatens people, rewards people with high paying funding, professorships, and they'll do anything. They'll do anything. These, some ambitious professors are, you know, they'll do any kind of thing to further their career, right? So, okay. So, I'm sorry, I get frustrated during this. So,
that's okay.
What were you saying then?
Yeah, I was gonna ask. So those emails that you put like on text, do you have screenshots of the emails?
Yeah, we have the emails on the website. We have the emails. The emails are in the possession of the police. Okay, the emails are in, like, you know, like Christopher Wray's.
Because I just had trouble.
Crimes.
Yeah, I had trouble finding the ones.
Listen, number one, you can't make up anything in Japan when you're under threat from the prosecutors. Okay.
Okay.
It's impossible. We're gonna say something without evidence. Okay. If you look at my criminal complaints, I never mentioned the murder attempt on me because
Yeah.
when someone tried to beat me to death, I didn't have a camera. I couldn't capture it.
Yeah.
We had to go into hiding. I was bedridden on adult Pampers for 2 months because I was in so severe pain. This was in 2011, okay, during a criminal conspiracy that is all caught. The planning, the forgery, the patent theft, and the Mitsubishi UFJ stealing our money. And it turned out why the embassy, you could find magic, why the embassy, why the ambassador John Roos wouldn't help my son. Well, you can see he took a high paying position from the bank that was involved in the crime. So sorry, I don't normally do these videos, so
Yeah. Yeah.
please forgive me. So
No,
yeah,
it's
but
okay.
so when I made that video, Jimmy had multiple organ failure. He had a cardiac arrest. He was expected to die. In the embassy was concealing, the State Department and the FBI were concealing. And I want you to know, at that time, at the exact same time, I published that second video. That's the third video, right, of 2015. The Trump campaign had offered to help my son. Okay.
Hmm.
So not only did I file that video, I pissed off Dianne Feinstein's office because we had a woman from the IMF, Quimby Wilcox, who she's the one who said they're actually not allowed to do this. They're not allowed to conceal it. They have to help you. It's a medical emergency. The State Department's breaking the law. So remember, at that time, when that video where I'm making, because the way I made that video with music was someone told me to make it like that. They said, because your other video talking, nobody cares. And this was a guy from LA, and there was another person who made a video. Remember, YouTube, I was just new to it. So in 2015, I think many people were just getting on it, I think, So
Hmm.
I didn't know what I was doing. So I don't know. So I panicked and made a quick video. But yeah, those emails of us being threatened are in the possession of the prosecutors, or being hidden. They're in the possession of the FBI, obviously, the State Department, all of them. So it's unlawful to conceal crimes and publish fake human rights reports.
Hmm.
Well, the FBI, the State Department, the DOJ right now is violating my constitutional rights and harming our family because only fake news is allowed. You're fake bloggers. You're fake people who are commenting, who are reading one section. A Japanese person, is showing that he's lying.
Hmm.
Okay. Well, the guy is saying he's did this, put a paper bag over his mouth, but he's got a strangle mark around his neck from the paper bag. I mean, the guy's a pathological liar, right?
Okay.
So that's evidence. Okay, so
Sure.
go ahead. Sorry, long. I'm talking a
No,
lot, so
no, yeah, no.
I got
That's it. The more the better, honestly. No, yeah, I'm
yeah,
loving this. So,
yeah,
okay,
yeah. That Japanese guy is so full of shit.
yeah,
Can I say bad words on your?
yeah. I don't care. Go ahead. Yeah,
But I don't want you to get censored or
I can
something.
just, I mean, I can just censor the word if it's gonna be an issue. But like, yeah, I mean, if you can
Really?
find,
'Cause
yeah,
I got some things to say to some of your little.
I definitely don't want them
Go
saying
ahead.
bad things. I don't like when they say bad things to people. That's never my intention. But yeah, I mean, so those emails I was talking about earlier, I must have just not seen them. Like, I'm not doubting you. Just like, if you could send those to me, if you can find them, I would like
Yeah.
to put them on the video so other people
All
can see
right,
them
sure.
too.
I mean, tell me the timeline. We have so many. I mean, yeah.
Just the ones that like, say like, be careful of your actions. This will be a problem for your son. Like those kinds of things, because that'd be perfect.
They're all on the. Did you see all the links I sent you?
I did. Yep.
Yeah. Those are all there. Actually, it's worse.
Okay, I'll double check then.
The evidence is irrefutable. Okay, all of those are serious crimes: coercing us, covering up, fraud, stealing money from the public, violating the public trust to enrich themselves, threatening us to cover up the crimes when we're obligated to teach it. Let's just say, let's not call them crimes. Okay, we found evidence of misconduct. Let's use a nice word. Okay, and if we were to hide that evidence and later found out we did not share this with shareholders of Advanced Cell Technology, we could be held accountable, liable for this.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a fact. After that, we gave all the evidence to the police that they were going to investigate. Okay, so immediately one of my wife's friends, a former number two at Mizuho Bank, Everybody knew what happened to my son because we shared it. He was suffocated, strangled, and so they had an idea, like, oh, because we now advanced stem cell science was engaged in fraud. We couldn't use it, so we pivoted to make another company, way to sell technology, another one, ESET, that we were going to then continue to use to take over stem cell sciences in the United States, so we could develop now we needed to accelerate a therapy for my son. So we met with Michael West. We were doing all the contracts, Bill Caldwell, and we were moving very fast. And Mizuho said, hey, there's a Mikitani. He's making a banking. He's a CEO of a tech company. And this company called Rakuten, they want to put up like 10 million for your project to take over advanced cell technology. So can you come? And so my wife and I were pulled away from pressuring the police, and were brought into Mizuho Securities. And we spent a year training them because, okay, let's hurry it up. And we were training them. Here's how you do this. Here's what this stem cell is. And here's what advanced cell technology, and training them what we were going to do to package. We put two professors, Nakauchi, another one from another high professor who betrayed us. People betray you like for money. It's incredible. So we're training them to take over and make a new company with advanced, and then instead of using stem cell sciences, we're going to take it over another way, make a new company with advanced cell technology. It's all in email. Okay, this is all. We had a contract with advanced cell technology, and we have all the planning. We're training Mizuho Securities. It turned out that was a scam. That's a trade secret theft, lying, wasting our time, misleading us, and transferring all of our trade secrets to Rakuten, who then we were told was using that for their project for a company called in Korea. And then Korea magically they did they used our planning to take over, and they even launched a press release as we were training Mizuho. Here's what you do. Here's your announce, because we were going to bring in 100 stem cell lines to Japan. Embarrassing Japan for their slow pace of research. And we had what you called the marula-derived stem cell line, which was ethical, not killing the embryo. And we were training Mizuho. Here's how you do it. We announced that we're launching the ethical embryonic stem cell line. We were training, and they even did that. Not only did they steal our trade secrets, they even copied down my wife's planning down to the press releases. So after that, we were shocked and stunned. But okay, so that's fine. So, but we still, my wife and I, we don't waste a lot of time on, okay, he's a scumbag. All right, they're all criminals. Let's pivot and let's take over this company called R Blast USA, which is cornea sheet regeneration. We took it over.
Okay.
We quickly signed a deal, which took what?
What year did that happen in?
This is 2011.
Okay.
2010, actually.
Okay,
so,
got it.
And there's emails to show, because also I want you to show in November 2010, my wife called, not me. My wife called the Tokugawa police saying, what's the holdup? When are we going to get indictments? When are people going to be held accountable for what they did to my son? You have them caught. Now, the bureaucrat who's threatening us, no one investigates. Nobody will. It's like investigating Fauci. They don't do it. They don't investigate corrupt high-level bureaucrats in the United States too. So you can't hold them accountable. I think in the United States, if you're a Republican or a conservative, they'll investigate you. But if you're like one on the Democratic side, they're closely linked with these lawyers that are revolving in and out of the DOJ and the state. So that's, I think, the disadvantage I think that party has. So in Japan, they don't investigate the top bureaucrats.
Okay.
We tried to get them, but no. You could piss off the police that they're not going to do it. You can get in trouble because the prosecutors will try to look for a way to make up a story on you. So, okay. So she called the Tokugawa police and said they lost all the evidence. And my wife is like, what this is recorded. Okay. And it's too late to relaunch the investigation because there's a statute of limitations coming up in 3 years, December 28th. So at the same time, we're so busy with professors, right? We're so busy with now going to take over accelerated technology. My wife had funded some other research. We're okay. At least we're. It takes a lot of energy, time, money, everything to just get involved in developing, finding the right scientists, getting. I mean, it's so hard work. Okay,
Yeah.
so when people steal trade secrets like Mizuho and Rakuten, um, it's really that's a national security crime. You're not supposed to steal American know-how. Okay, and this took years of hard work and deep know-how. So that's a serious crime. Number one, Rakuten. And you can see the ambassadors taking money from Rakuten as they're covering up the crimes of my son, which is really unlawful. But okay, so okay, that happened, and at the same time, my wife's helping a cardiac surgeon, a pediatric cardiac surgeon called Carlos Draconis, who was in Miami University. So he had all these children he was rescuing. So, and all these children that my wife is going to help were slandered online in Japan, and they all died. So this, it's linked with murder of children from Haiti, also. And I don't want to confuse you and go back, but yeah, other children died because of the corruption in Japan. So anyway, so we were okay. So the police, Tokugawa police, Saitama police are not going to, they're going to lie and lose copies, lie to us and lie to us and lie to us and lose copies. This is happening right now in the United States with the Biden crimes from Ukraine or wherever they're doing. Same, almost identical. So, all right, so we still continue. We're taking over. We took over Arblast USA, and we're going to merge it with 40 Cell Biosciences. Okay, this is even on the SEC site.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And there was an earthquake, tremendous earthquake in 2011. So, and we were living at Roppongi Hills on the 22nd floor, and it was really chaotic. And anyway, so we had to like quickly adapt because my wife became aware no one was going to resolve the contamination of the water in the children's school up north towards Fukushima. Right. So I quickly had met a governor from Vermont, and he was introducing some carbon nanotube technology that George Gilder had invested in, Selden Technology. So we'll take it over. For Japan market, we took the exclusive rights and we're launching it into Japan. And we launched it. And it was overly successful to remove. It was the only third party tested from the Navy, funded by the Department of Defense, NASA, Department of Energy, highly advanced nanocarbon technology that my wife took that I actually had to take, but it was her idea. And we launched it to try to remove radioactive, and she's donating this to schools. And also it's selling online and unbelievable success. So that will show you how the crimes or national security crimes, as they're beginning to now, there's an email that we don't know about, but it's planning. The Saint Nakajima Yoshiko is planning. She's smearing us, and she's planning with JCR Pharmaceuticals to steal our patents, to sabotage our company in our merger and acquisition. That's a crime. The email is a crime. JCR Pharmaceuticals, what you call adversary, he's trying to steal my patents with the bureaucrat who was involved in threatening us with aiming threats at my son 2 days before he was suffocated and strangled, that the police are covering up. That's all caught in email. All right. So, okay. So, wow, magically the police call. We didn't know we're under surveillance, right? Police, Komatsugawa police. So the police call me in for interrogation. They start threatening us like, you're selling, this has no evidence that you can remove radioactive waste. It's selling it too cheap. Anyway, so the police are harassing us. We didn't know this, but the police schmuck in recorded evidence says, oh, someone from the government, the Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry had called him and pushed them to harass us or to sabotage us, right? So when I was brought into interrogation, they were trying to make me falsely confess, okay? And at the same time, to something I couldn't understand. What are you trying to do to me? So, and I didn't know this, but this was directly linked to the retaliation. The government was retaliating us as the police were concealing that they were concealing the plastic bag suffocation and strangulation of an 11-year-old boy. So, and so as the police threatening me, my wife captures him saying, "If you don't shut up, my wife, they're gonna make up a reason for." She's recording this. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, okay, because she's very strategic as she trapped Wakamatsu to admit and lie and lie and lie, and also she very soft, very strategic. So it's the same method. She's soft and classy and elegant, taking and taking them, giving them the me go ego, and then they fuck it all up. They admit that the government sent them, and they're threatening that they're going to make up a reason to indict us if we don't shut up. And I got to sign a paper that I'm guilty of some crime. Who knows? And because it's poorly written.
Yeah.
And if I don't sign, I'm not going to go home. I'm not going to go home. I'll never see my family until they release me. They're going to indict me, right? They confiscate all our equipment. So they're sabotaging American technology. They're sabotaging and they're threatening me. And Mitsubishi UFJ seizes our bank account, steals the money, and then contacts Selden Technologies customers, making fraud like he's involved in furikomisagi, which is a crime. It's a huge crime in Japan. If someone's involved in furikomisagi, it's like it ruins their reputation forever. No one can do
Okay.
business with you. So Mitsubishi is accusing me of furikomisagi, stealing our money, and I'm being threatened. But my wife then plays the recording that you're threatening our family, going to invent a crime or make up a crime to indict us if we don't shut up. And of course, she complains every time that they covered up crimes on my son, her son, our son. So, all right, so they have to let me go. And so I'm home, and I don't know there's a criminal conspiracy being orchestrated by the bureaucrat, which is a national security crime. It's serious international crimes, right? But that's sabotaged. National security crimes, economic espionage, orchestrated by by a bureaucrat who was involved in threatening us when we caught her in fraud after they suffocated my son. These are serious crimes. We do not know. My son's at Nihon University on life support. We have no idea that the company JCR Pharmaceuticals is now funding the doctors to do what you called skeletal growth experiments on my son. Not just my son, other children. So they're deliberately starving certain children, depriving essential nutrition. So when some of your circus clowns say, "Oh, he's got a genetic," I'm a doctor. I heard this ridiculous lady say stuff without any brain. I feel sorry for their patients. So but they're doing growth experiments and brain development experiments, and they're starving them, depriving, and they're doing this on certain children. So, and you could see, if you remove nutrition on developing children, you'll ruin them. So, and sometimes I see on social media, "Oh, these black people, they're violent."
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, you maybe in Chicago, whatever, but you look at the nutrition they're given under this, and I used to I love Dave Chappelle, right? He makes a joke about how when he was like he's a great comedian, sorry, but he talks about purple drink, how the brothers, they grew up as a child as purple drink, which is just sugar and color,
Yeah,
right? They
yeah.
don't have juice, right? So, and that's very bad nutrition. I mean, you'll never have a fully developed child like that. And if you're giving them processed foods, this is well known, you're going to stunt their growth, brain development. So this is well known, right?
But yeah, what I really want to know from here is what's the plan going forward with Elpis Aremo and Omgenium as far as like what you're gonna do to help with Jimmy? Because I know on the site like you talk about these things like reverse aging and curing these seemingly
Yeah.
incurable diseases and whatnot.
Yeah.
Is there any way that we can take a look and to see what kind of research you guys are doing? Because I know on the technology
No,
page of the
no,
website
I'm
I
not going to
can't.
share. No, we're
Okay.
still, can you go to ask Google what their AI people are doing?
No, but I feel like we could.
Yeah. Okay. So
Well,
here we have a
can't you?
project called the Resurrection Project
Okay.
launching. So We have another starter for the heart that's not public yet. So uh, what happened was we know now that even stem cells alone is not going to help my son.
Okay.
We know that there are some big breakthroughs, right? Now, we were the first group in the world with Yuri Valinsky to reprogram stem cells. So you can see Jeff Bezos, he's paying $3 billion to Silicon Valley to become immortal, right? With IPS derived induced pluripotency using transcription factors, right?
Hmm.
That's not going to work for my son. So there was a breakthrough with in nanomechanics, or I would call it, they call it mechanical biology. You could look at the Weiss Institute. Now you can now subtly turn on certain specific proteins by even light and sound, right?
Yes.
So our only way to induce my son to even some of his bones is to induce certain specific protein expression in his bones and then straighten them through an exoskeleton. So I'm giving you proprietary strategy. So also with his brain, we're activating certain cells, his cells, and then as we're going to induce them, introduce them into his brain, we're syncing them with a modulating helmet that we've launched, or we're launching. It's taking a long time because of the unlawful persecution, unlawful cover up, the murdering of my son. If he dies, he's got a brain tumor now, so we have to put that on hold till we can remove the tumor. So we're not allowed in the media. So so that's our strategy.
Okay. Sure.
Epistemo was founded off a breakthrough, understanding that, wow, we're entering into this incredible new age. So even you could see in 2015, as Jimmy's dying, I got to put together a team, right? And make videos and survive persecution and adapt to this hell. And so there was a breakthrough. I couldn't figure it out, but it wasn't until 2016 we figured out, wow, we really can modulate tissue and activate certain. So that's an incredible discovery.
Mm.
So, so immortality is here. I can tell you that, and I think many people know about it. DARPA know about it. I don't know what they're but it's what you call, everybody's scattered differently in different directions. I mean, mRNA is not going to do it, obviously. So our strategy for Jimmy is multiple platforms converge to try to rescue him. Now, you're right. We filed many patents. We've been in still the persecution, false accusations. Now they're removed magically in the cover up. Mitsubishi UFJ is still in trouble. They're going to be held accountable. Mizuho too, and the government has to remedy the situation as long as there's transparency, right? So, but we're not allowed in the media. We're not allowed. It's a scam.
Mm.
So, so the companies now, Epicenter was based upon a discovery that we're going to be able to do it. And in the future, even everything you're wearing is going to have, it can, as long as you put the right, I'm not going to share proprietary
Sure.
information,
Sure.
but so wearables, bed, your room without precise parameters. So we're entering a stage where children born now, as long as you can prevent injury and death, will almost likely be immortal, can be immortal if you avoid crash or this, or because
And this
inch
could
by
happen like in
inch,
our lifetime.
definitely your lifetime, as long as World War III, as long as we're not going to go into this World War III because of people are making money in Ukraine. So, or enriching themselves with the American taxpayers' money. so so I can tell you that we have pure confidence that inch by, let's say, James, you're okay. You'll stop his death, and you'll maybe self regenerate some parts of his brain. Well, and we're prolonging his recovery, and we're prolonging and
Mm.
we're enabling the mechanisms of his bone softening temporarily to straighten them and to then reinforce them, because we can also keep the ligament strength, cartilage strength, as we're softening the bones, as we're then recovering his brain, as we're then now DARPA's using helmets to even put information, not just accumulate to control drones. The DARPA's now has certain specific activity regions of the brain. So even by the time we're seeing, we can now put information in my son's brain. So I can make him in eventually this is I think you don't need the Neuralink strategy because I think that's not going to work. But you can subtly put activating and putting memories and certain stuff into my son's brain, maybe in 10 years. And by the time we're slowly recovering his rib cage, his brain, and getting some of his organs to recover back to normal size, we'll have mechanisms that we've understand that will then allow us to then make him what you called, you know, part machine, part human, but then contribute to all of humanity.
I
Now,
see.
there are people who say, why don't you just kill him? Why don't you know? I know they've strangled him. He's fighting to stay alive. And some of your sick people, why don't I go and put a pillow and murder my son after he's fighting to stay alive? Well, that's murder,
Yeah.
right? And you people who are suggesting that are suggesting I murder my son. And my son is fighting by himself, right? You know, so even though the State Department, they're involved in self-enrichment schemes and cover up, he's still fighting. Uh, AI can accelerate the understanding and research, and eventually, yes, you'll be able to predict all these things. Say, for example, let's say you're driving 5 years in the next generation Tesla,
Hmm.
and he's got, and you have now, even what we're doing to even, we're using a robotic system in the strategy to deliver cells and activate my son's brain. So those algorithms will be put into robots. And those robots will eventually be obviously in 5 years more sophisticated than your current brain surgeons, right? So you could have even in your car in 10 years a little miniature expert near all the algorithms of minimally invasive surgery for the heart, brain, keeping you alive, everything. So let's say you're in your Nikola, you're in your car, your Tesla,
Hmm.
and he can predict immediately the injuries and everything. A robotic can pop out. He can immediately stabilize you. This and he can predict everything.
Hmm.
Uh, and he can freeze your brain temporarily if you need to, if all your blood's gone, or he can help until you get blood's back in. And the blood can be also potent, regenerative blood, and he can put you on a bed that's also help regenerating you. So so preventing death from even tragedy can be done as long as you have one of those personal robotic systems that have all the algorithms and all the tools embedded in them, which is completely feasible. But they're sending all the money to war. They're doing stupid shit. Uh, games, really retarded stuff. So the technology is here. Immortality technology is here. I'm not joking.
Okay. That's
Well, when
interesting.
some of your idiots, I'm calling them real idiots, right? So because they're just listening, and I know DARPA or the government and competitors, they're not teaching you. I'm the idiot teaching you. Okay. So the advancements are there. I'm the only schmuck talking about it
Hmm.
because it's there. It's there. So thank you. So yeah,
Yeah.
my son's gonna,
I
yeah,
know. Yeah, that's all
true.
really interesting. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for the time today. We're definitely gonna get all of this out and hope to get more eyes to this. Is there anything that you want to say before we conclude things here?
Yeah. This is a real time criminal complaint. When my son dies, it's a deliberate murder. Okay. It's a felony murder. Covering up crimes is illegal. Publishing fake human rights reports or criminal, it's illegal. Having these schemes of self enrichment, having us being terrorized, this is a criminal complaint. So I'm asking your people to, if you can, make a copy of this video and share it with the people who are investigating the FBI corruption or the Biden, because the Obama or Biden administration was the main people who facilitated this. The Trump administration, I guess they were scared of maybe his orange color or maybe he was off the rail. I even met, I spoke with, it's a long story, but they allowed us to file court we were allowed to file three court for the first time. We were not allowed to sue Mitsubishi. It's fake courts.
Hmm.
And magically, when Biden was reelected, all of our court cases were thrown out. So
Hmm.
they're afraid of the orange guy. So I think this election is very important to get out the corruption. I think Robert F. Kennedy is really good. I think he's speaking truth. You have so just please become awake. You're living in a fake administration that was involved in the same people who were involved or still involved. um, you have this um, Vivek, intelligent guy, Vivek, Indian guy. You know, he's running for president. He's a nationalist, which is you have to protect the borders and protect your environment, your children. He's really good, sharp. Robert F.K. This guy. Trump is better, also good for me. I'm not a Republican, but he scares the Asians. He scares them for some reason. They were all scared of me. We were given human rights back. Of course, we're not allowed. His State Department, Bill Barr was corrupt. Uh, Pompeo, this guy Rex Tillerson, he rescued a Jewish boy named Otto Warmbier, and let my son covered up my crimes. You know, this criminal. Sorry,
Yeah.
I get frustrated. So I'm trying to get equal treatment, which they're trying to say. Even Merrick Garland is no fear or favor, and we're going to treat the investigations in Trump equally to the investigation. That's a scam.
Hmm.
Okay, you can look at my son right now. I can guarantee you, you could see the last Olympics. You could torture an ethnic disabled child. You can strangle, suffocate. If someone made a joke about the Holocaust, the State Department, FBI, everybody's on the ball.
Yeah.
You know, Anthony Blinken, they'd have a press conference. So know that they're never going to treat you equal. So the only way I think that we're going to do it is by ourselves. So you have your own influence. Most people don't understand. You're quite white, right? So
Hmm.
how are you a big guy?
Uh, I don't know, but middle, I guess, in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you're out here, you're never gonna. There's no such thing as white supremacy in the Pacific Rim. That's a scam. There is no, but you understand. Maybe it is. Sometimes you're treated unequal. I don't know. In Japan, really unequal with the help of the State Department. So what I'd ask your people is, if you can help file a criminal complaint and push these investigations into the FBI corruption and force them to, they're not going to investigate themselves, force Congress to push Jimmy's case, and they have to respond. And I'm filing more criminal complaints, but they have to respond. And also is a warning. We did survive. I survived 2 murder attempts. My son survived. Um, you know, you don't try. We just telling people, just everybody's caught, and it's going to be very difficult for someone to harm us again. If they did, I mean, this it's going to be. I may die, but also they may die, and
Hmm.
they're jacking with someone who's really harmed, and I don't want to harm anybody. I don't want to, defend my family in a way that's very, unlawful, but I will. So
Yeah.
that's the thing. I will destroy someone if they mistakenly fail to get rid of me. Or so that's just the point. But even if it's one of those confidential human resource people. But anyways, please help my son. He's got a brain tumor, and we're just trying to get transparency. People who think that the media are real or not, and people who think even the right wing will help you, they're not going to help you. I mean, there are media, this Epoch Times, they won't touch me. These other people, the Daily Caller, they won't touch me. So it's not right wing or left wing. Nobody's going to touch your case. And then that puts it weird. That puts it weird because you have a guy who was involved in covering up the murder of some black children in Chicago, Rahm Emanuel. Why was he decided as the ambassador? And he's now whining and dining with Mikitani, who's Rakuten, who's involved in trade secret theft.
Hmm.
You can see the high paying positions. They get real, useless people. Their only skill appears to be, like Eric Holder is don't investigate. Too big to jail. Too big to investigate. And all the American taxpayer money is being sent abroad, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
being sent to fund wars. That's putting us in risk. It's not going. The United States, it's just falling apart. So please help my son. Please vote, and please try to get my son's case. And please, Joe Biden's involved. Joe Biden with Obama and his State Department and Clinton and all these people, they were a party of pay to play, and
Mm-hmm.
nobody's allowed to talk about it. They're saying right now, well, she had emails on her. This, what's his name? Anthony Weiner, his laptop, and the FBI still has the emails right now.
Yeah.
We could easily see the classified emails. My thinking is they were doing, because they made so much money off of this Magnitsky Act, which was based on a hoax, given special treatment, that I think that you'll find evidence of that scheme in that. I think it's in New York. The SDNY is holding those this pedophile's laptop with all the emails that nobody talks about.
Mm-hmm.
So if you could push that investigation to just maybe prevent them from gaining power, because look what they're doing to me now. We're not allowed anywhere.
Yeah.
They will probably be involved. Right now, we're very close to launching one of the most advanced brain regeneration projects worth tremendous amount of money. You know that based upon evidence that the self-enrichment of people revolving in and out of the State Department, that they could make a lot of money if a Japan bank, along with another Japanese drug company like JCR, is involved in stealing our technology again and just making sure the State Department, FBI, don't investigate and give them high paying positions like they did before, in stealing again. That's that harms America. That harms America because it takes years and literally no sleep and everything we have to put this together. So, for humanity's reasons, my son can survive and we can help recover him, and even every human will benefit. So, please help us, please. And this is under oath. Everything I'm saying is um, under penalty of perjury. That if I'm lying, you can give me a Muslim head chop off. And as long as if you're lying and you're spreading, we should be able to chop your head off because of the crimes that have been done. So uh, this is a criminal complaint,
Okay.
and I am doing this as an affidavit, an online affidavit from which they can't hide. You know how they're hiding these criminal complaints in the FBI now for Biden, the pay to play schemes.
Yeah.
This one you can't. This may be the future criminal complaint. A public interest. It's in the public interest. So please help. And I want to thank you, Eric, for the courage for you helping. And maybe some of this has to go to a private section, you know?
Yeah, I'll have two copies of it. So yeah.
So just put some of that where I'm fighting with the State Department. Maybe that has to go into your private section where I'm talking about Jonathan Weiner,
Sure.
because these people are monsters. They're the revolving door attorneys that are part of this corruption. So just help save my son's life. Thank you.
Got it. Yep. Thank you so much. Have a good one.
God bless you. Thank you. Bye.